What we're doing in this body today is not draining the swamp. What we're doing is running a whole bunch of hoses to the edge of the swamp, turning them on to the highest possible volume flow, and then turning our backs on the swamp and shouting, "There's nothing to see here." That's what we're doing. We're doing the opposite of draining the swamp today.
That was Senator Ben Sasse, longtime critic of Donald Trump. A great guy, by the way. Wrote an excellent book about taking personal responsibility for yourself and for your future and raising better kids. But Ben Sasse really believes that when the president cut a deal with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to raise the debt limit for just 3 months and to give $15 billion to Texas, that was the result. Now, the president was raving that he's gotten positive coverage on this, and I think it is a shot across the bow to Republican leadership, who he feels in many respects has let him down. Let's bring in one of our favorite guests, Senator James Lankford, who, if I'm going to do the movie on my life, I like him to do the voiceover. Senator Lankford, welcome back.
I can help you out with that, Brian. Glad to be able to do it. Good to be with you again.
Okay, great. Senator, where do you stand between saying it's a good move and where Senator Ben Sasse is?
Yeah, I'm at the same spot Senator Ben Sasse is. The issue that we really face is anytime you do debt limit, it's a very basic principle. The debt limit exists so that the nation has to stop and debate debt and try to figure it out. This was just a way to be able to advance the debt limit and to ignore the debt rather than to actually try to resolve the debt and just be able to move it. And we loaded even more into December. So it's now debt limit, it's flood insurance, it's all of our appropriation bills. All of those are loaded all into one big package now in December and making a cliff even higher.
True, but this month you have a budget to pass, you had a debt limit to raise, and the president wants to get tax reform out there. What do you know about what your party and your president is going to be presenting?
So the tax reform is also another December piece. That's one more thing loaded into the end of the year. I completely agree with that, Brian. Here's my frustration. Ben and I haven't talked about this specifically, but I assume it's his as well. We knew about the debt limit deadline in January. We knew about the deadline for the budget times in January. None of this was new, and to be able to cram it all into right now and to be able to say, okay, let's get it done right now, and oh my gosh, we've got to panic because we're in the final moments, ignores the reality of the calendar. I laid out a proposal months ago. Here's how we can do appropriations, how we can actually do it in individual bills, and to be able to have enough floor time to be able to do it. Most of the members of the Appropriations Committee nodded their head and said that's a much better way to do it. I laid out a proposal on the debt limit. Here's how we can resolve this long term and actually get some reforms into the debt limit and provide some consistency. We can't play with the debt limit. I get that completely. But when we get to the moment of the debt limit, we should be reducing deficits, not just ignoring the reality.
But you guys didn't. But you couldn't get leadership to keep you at work in August, even though you had all this to do. No one stuck around. I talked to James Jordan on television today, and he said he was begging to work through the summer because they had so much to do. And here we are. I mean, most of you have Fridays off. You're calling me, helping me out, helping the show out. I appreciate it. People go home on the weekends. You're back again on Monday's a travel day. Tuesday, it's back to work. Maybe Wednesday, you get something done. Thursday, it's time to think about leaving again. But you have this huge list. Why could you not get through the leadership?
So there were 9 of us that pushed pretty hard to be able to keep us into session into August, and we actually did stay longer in August than we were scheduled to stay. It was the additional week that was added there, and we, frankly, got a lot done that week. 70 different nominations moved for the president just that week. So there was a lot that was accomplished.
But you know why that happened? Because repeal and replace failed, and the Democrats thought no reason to hold all these other people up.
I would agree, by the way, and there was a negotiation that actually happened there. Now there's been a lot of work in August behind the scenes. Some of the work actually happens when we're not voting. Some of it happens in different committee meetings and different hearings. And as you know, for most of the meetings and committee hearings that happen, it's not really the hearing that happened. It's the hearing before the hearing that actually got it all negotiated and done, and then the hearing just makes it final. So a lot of that work did get done in August, but I'm one of the folks that agree with you. I was one of those 9 that said let's stay all the way through August and get it done if that's what it takes.
Now, I understand you got to go to your home district, but in this case, this was by far and away more important. So the president reaches across the aisle, and everyone says, well, he did exactly what Democrats wanted, so therefore, what kind of deal is that? My sense is, long term, the Democrats lost one card. Their leadership has says, do not deal with Republicans, and certainly don't deal with these presidents. But now they had leadership, just do a deal with the president. Now, some Democratic colleagues agree with you on a lot of issues, but they were actually hamstrung by leadership that was threatening them. Do you believe that threat has been lifted now because of the fact of the matter is leadership went and dealt with this president?
Well, I hope that is so, actually. There's been a whole movement among Democrats just to say resist. Anything President Trump puts out, oppose him, don't ever work with him, ignore him, stay away from him. I had, after that vote at 2:30 in the morning on health care, I was bombarded with Democrat Senate colleagues that came over to me and said, okay, I know that this failed, but there are problems in my hospitals. There are problems with the insurance rates in my state. There's problems with the amount of options in my state. We've got to be able to keep working. Please don't drop it. Let's keep going. They were quietly hoping that something would actually pass to be able to resolve it. They could vote against, but that it would actually pass and to be able to solve the major dilemma that is Obamacare. There is a breakthrough happening with some of the Democrats saying we have got to actually work for the American people and get some of this stuff done rather than just saying we're opposed to everything, whether it's a good idea or not.
My problem is, and your big problem is that when Democrats say we want to fix it, they want more money. And that's not the way you fix it. They just want more money at a program that cost almost $1 billion. They act like Obamacare is revolutionary. If you take $800 billion and throw it at anything, people say, well, I'm getting more services. No, we went into further debt in order to give you a program that we can't actually afford.
That is correct. And the biggest sticking point of all is not just the taxes, but it's the mandates. The key thing is when you go down to the skinny bill, that was the last of the votes on the end of that health care night, the skinny bill was really focused in on getting rid of the individual mandate and the employer mandate. That is absolutely a commitment from Democrats. They're not going to touch those mandates. They like those mandates, and they think that they're going to work. I just adamantly disagree. That's
of course, it's killing. You know why, Senator? Because you talk to small business owners. You know about the mom-and-pop restaurant that can't afford to give their waiters and waitresses health care because their margins are already tight. So they hire less people, and they make them work less hours.
Yeah, let me add one more to that. 81% of the individual mandate taxes in my state are taxes on people that do not have health care coverage. Those are people that make $50,000 or less. 81% of the people paying the taxes in Oklahoma make $50,000 or less. These are people that can't afford the insurance anymore because it's so expensive. They don't have insurance now. They used to, but they don't have it anymore, and now they're getting an additional punishment. So the government has pushed them out of something they wanted to buy and is kicking them when they're down. That's got to be fixed.
Senator Lankford's our guest, Oklahoma. Senator, I want to bring you to a president's tweet earlier today. He says, Republicans, sorry, but I've been hearing about repeal and replace for 7 years. It didn't happen. Even worse, the Senate filibuster rule will never allow the Republicans to pass even great legislation. 8 Democrats control. Will rarely get 60 versus 51 votes. It is a Republican death wish. He wants you to do everything simple majority. Where do you stand about replacing this filibuster?
Yeah, I've actually been out there on this for 2 years. I laid out a proposal 2 years ago when we did not know who would run the Senate. So we're talking prior to the 2016 elections. At that point, no one knew which direction the Senate was going to go. I made a proposal to everybody and just said, here's a simple way to do it. Let's fix the filibuster by doing this one thing. Most people don't know there's 2 filibusters for every bill. One to get on the bill and another one to get off the bill. I think that that's ridiculous. You cannot even debate a bill and get on it without 60 votes. So I have proposed getting rid of that first filibuster entirely. Whoever's in the majority should be able to get on a bill and debate it. And once you start debating it, everyone gets their voice. Everyone gets to engage in it. They work till they actually get it passed. But to have a group that can step back and say, no, you can't even discuss this topic on the Senate floor, I think is absurd. So I'm actually a proponent to say there needs to be a moment where everybody has made sure that they get heard. That's what the filibuster is supposed to do. but it's not working as it's intended. So get rid of the first one entirely. Let's get on debate, and let's actually move on these things.
All right.
And by the way, I would tell you, there's lots of groups, Concerned Women for America, Tea Party Patriots, all kinds of folks that have engaged to try to help push this idea that I put up there. I had a piece in the Wall Street Journal on this just a few weeks ago to be able to lay it out. I actually ran into some people this week that were carrying that article around, going Senate office to Senate office, meeting with different senators, saying this is a better idea.
Well, have you told the president, Senator? Have you told the president this?
I actually have. I sat down with the president about a month ago. We talked about this specific idea, and he was very, very favorable to that. And so it was very helpful. So I appreciate the Judicial Crisis Networks and Susan B. Anthony, Concerned Women, and all these groups that are out there helping push this, because that's how it's going to actually get done and how we can fix this.
So the President of the United States also tweeted this out. For all those DACA kids that are concerned about your status, DACA, that are concerned about your status during the 6-month period, you have nothing to worry about, no action. That's in response to an urge from former Speaker Pelosi to let the DACA kids know, or DACA people know, that we're not coming after you. It's still criminals first. How do you feel about that being an isolated offering without being tied to the wall or any type of comprehensive plan?
I don't think that's where the president is. It's to be an isolated offering, that it's not connected. The president and I have spoken about this. I would say the conversation is not to do just individual take care of what's happening with DACA, but we've got much larger immigration issues. If we just work on DACA legislatively, that will be no different than what President Obama did when he did a DACA statement, and then our borders were flooded with people trying to come across the border and to try to get in before, quote unquote, the gates closed. We need to deal with border security. We need to deal with internal security. We need to deal with the E-Verify system. What Tom Cotton and David Perdue have put out there is a good proposal to be able to start talking about how do we handle merit-based immigration rather than just family-connected immigration. All these things need to be a part of the conversation. DACA is one section of a larger conversation about immigration, and I think we should handle it that way. And I've had several folks say, we can solve this in a week. And I've said, no, we're not going to solve this in a week. This will be months of debate, because it should be about reforming the immigration and how we do it, not just dealing with DACA.
I know, but when you guys try to do stuff comprehensive, it doesn't get done. Remember Bush and Social Security. Remember immigration reform. We see this over and over again. We just saw repeal and replace. We know what it took to get Obamacare passed, which everybody knows is not working. So why should we think comprehensive immigration reform is going to work?
Well, I don't ever use the term comprehensive immigration reform, because that reminds me of what was done a couple of years ago when Harry Reid was in the lead, and it was the Gang of Eight proposal. That was a Democrat-led proposal with some Republicans on board, and I got to find out as comprehensive immigration reform, and I didn't agree with that proposal at all. There are some areas where we have common ground. We should work on those areas where we have common ground and fix as much as we can. The immigration problem is getting worse every year rather than better. And the longer we ignore the issues, and the longer we don't do things like finish the entry-exit visa system that is making sure people that come in actually leave on time. That was a proposal from the 9/11 Commission and is still not finished. The longer it takes to be able to deal with the wall, the longer it takes to deal with E-Verify, which is a very out-of-date, dysfunctional system. All of those things need to be resolved. So whenever we do anything on immigration, if Republicans are in the lead on this, we better be focused on the main priorities of national security.
All right. I want you to hear what Steve Bannon told 60 Minutes, which is going to air on Sunday, about what Republicans really think of the president. Cut 26.
They do not want Donald Trump's populist, economic, nationalist agenda to be implemented. It's very obvious. It's obvious as night follows day.
You are attacking on many fronts people who you need to help you to get things done.
They're not going to help you unless they're put on notice. They're going to be held accountable if they do not support the President of the United States.
What are your thoughts on Bannon's theory?
That's an interesting proposal, the accountability side of it. I would tell you, Republicans at this point often are saying, hey, we're on the same team. We may disagree on 5 or 10% of the issues, but we agree on 90 or 95% of the issues. And many Republicans feel like they're getting the heat from the White House, and Democrats who disagree with us 90% of the time are getting off scot-free. So we are allies with the president on most of the policies, and there are some of all of the policies. but not all of us think alike on every issue. So that's just the uniqueness. I represent Oklahoma. We as Oklahomans don't agree with every issue with every person in every other state. It's the reason we have a diverse perspective. But let's try to find ways to be able to work together.
But when you guys are, Senator, when you guys are without the cameras and microphones, you're sitting at lunch. Do you sit around and say, "This president, I cannot believe he won. I wish he wasn't there. How do we just get through this?"
No, that's not the conversation. I would tell you there are times that occasionally he will tweet something out that will say, "I wish you wouldn't have done that," because now all of the dialogue in the hallways will be about that topic rather than tax reform or about other things, because it distracts the message and the things we're working on. But no, there's not a real sense of that. There's a sense of how can we get stuff done. I mean, we go back again to Neil Gorsuch from the Supreme Court. We can go back to so many other issues and go, this would not have happened if Hillary Clinton was in office. We have got to continue to be able to work with a president that the American people have picked and that has put some good people in place in cabinet offices and everything else.
So there's no GOP conspiracy to undo the 2016 election?
No, there's not a GOP conspiracy to undo it. Obviously, there have been SAS, as you mentioned before, doesn't agree with the president in a lot of areas and such. There are going to be individuals that are in there, but there's no grand conspiracy to undo the election. Quite frankly, the focus is we always are guaranteed only 4 years of a presidency, so let's get as much done as we can and hope we have 8.
Senator, thanks so much. Appreciate it always.
You bet. Glad to be able to visit with you, Brian.
Senator Lankford joining us.